Hi, everybody. It's Bob Ost. This is Theater Resources Unlimited. For those of you who don't know us, we're a arts service organization that's been around for 32 years. Yes, 32 years. And I always hear, how come I never heard of you? And I always say, I don't know. But here we are, and here you're finding us finally. We support people in understanding the business of theater. We have a particular interest in developing producers, and we also do a lot of work supporting writers. We also like to get people together and network people. We're big on networking. So if you're just finding us now, and if this sounds like something you might be interested in, join us at some point, please. Um, we've been doing these conversations. Originally, they were a community service because back in 2020, we all went into lockdown and were ready to jump out windows. And instead of jumping out windows, I decided to open up a Zoom room. So we've been doing this now for four years. This is our 222nd consecutive interview. Uh, we've talked about all sorts of things over the past 4 years, three and a half years, 4 years. Um, and now we're sort of circling back to something that is we've touched on from time to time since the start, which is AI. Yes, we're going to talk about AI today. We've had several conversations from different aspects of AI. Today, I'm really happy to say that we have somebody, Tim Kashani, has been dangling this carrot in front of me for like 2.5, like 2 years, I think it is, about about doing this panel eventually, because of all the people I know, I think he's the one who's most involved in using AI constructively to create theater. Um, and we had a conversation with him, I think 2 years ago, which was very different than the one today. Today, things are getting serious. So today it's like the bar mitzvah of AI. It's coming into its own. It's growing up. I'm going to bring Tim on, and we're going to explain those weird comments to everyone. Basically, Tim, first of all, hi and welcome back to TRU. It's so good to have you back.
Well, thank you
Um,
for having me. It's good to be back.
what I wanted to say is there's been a lot of concern about AI over the years. During shutdown, there was an actor strike and there was a writer's strike, and one of the things that was in dispute was the horrifying possibilities of AI. Um, so we know that there are concerns. Let me just open this up by saying we know there are concerns. What Tim is going to talk about is what we say in the title of this, using AI for good. There are ways of using it for good. It isn't necessarily something that has been invented to replace human beings. And even though we know that people are writing things with AI and actors are having their identities stolen with AI. There are good ways and solid ways and strong ways and important ways to use it. So, Tim, give us an overview of why you became interested in AI and how long you've actually been using it and how your use of AI has shifted. I know when we first talked, you were using it in a different way than you're using it now, I believe. Is that correct?
We've we're still doing what we've done in the foundation. It's just the foundation itself is now broadened extremely larger. I've been using AI since the 80s. It is one of the areas I studied in college, that and computer graphics and databases. Back then, humans were heavily involved in the creation and curation of building these AI systems, and we've named it many things over the years. And we've come up with decision support systems, management information systems, machine learning. I mean, the list goes on of 100 different things. The change that we have now is this autonomous ability of the machine to teach itself. We as humans are not as necessary as we were back even 10 years ago in creating what are becoming these different AI entities. And I use that word on purpose because it is growing into something that is feeling a lot less technology based. And we are doing a term called anthropomorphizing it, which means we're starting to treat it more and more like a human. And I'm not saying it's human by any mean here, but what I'm saying is discounting it because of its silicon-based nature, I feel is one of the dangers and will help those that want to use it for things that are not necessarily good.
Well, you haven't allayed fears yet. We'll get to the allaying of fears. It's still kind of a confounding and kind of overwhelming concept for many of us, especially uh, I'm a writer. You may know that. I started off as a writer. I didn't know I didn't always run true. Feels like it's always, but it hasn't been always. And one of the things that we are all concerned about is we have our voices. As artists, we have our voices. We are all hoping that AI doesn't come in and start writing things that will in some way replace us or even emulate us effectively. We don't want AI to be as good writers as we are. Is this hopeless?
Let's dissect this sentence. So the AI being as good of writer as you are, we have to first define who that writer is. The AI writers are exponentially growing in their capabilities, and they're using AI for writing different aspects right now, are already being either in collaboration with or replacing humans that have certain levels of writing capabilities. And what I mean by that is a lot of marketing text that you see right now, anything in the commercial worlds, a lot of that context is being written by AI, especially emails that are going out. When it comes to screenplays, when it comes to librettos, the 6 months ago to where we are today, it is the difference between if you said AI at that point was like a high school writer, it's if you train it properly, then it is now getting much closer to a college level grad. And it won't be long before it will be able to do much, much more. But what I think is the real key that you said in this is replacing your voice. So you as a creator have a choice in all of this. One choice is simply not to use any AI. I do suggest that everybody on this and anybody listening to it at least use it to understand it. That way you have an informed decision when you're speaking about it. And I'll tell you more about that later as to why I feel people like artists need to be heavily involved in the conversation. And that conversation is not simply, no, we can't use it at all because we will lose and you will lose that because it is already being used. But what's evolving is collaboration. You could take all of your writings, you could put it into your chosen model, and you could have it learn your writing style. And now it's up to you. You could do something simply, you've written something and you want it to evaluate it using, let's say you've written a musical, it knows all about musical structure. You could say, let's take Jack Purtell's The Secret Life of the American Musical and tell me, am I hitting the beats? Or I want to look at the heroine's journey. Where is my story strong? Where is my story weak? It already can act as a dramaturg for you. You can now, should you want, you can brainstorm ideas with it. And then why I say consent and how you choose to use it is really what we're all working towards right now would be you can say, I've got this great idea for a new musical about X, Y, and Z. Can you help me structure the outline for it using my style? And it now uses your style in it. And you can already have it write songs, you can have it write book, you can have it do a lot. And a lot of people will discount it by saying, oh, well, when I just say write a musical, it's not that great. But if when I spend usually an hour or two with somebody and show the collaboration back and forth that takes place, that's when they go, okay, this thing's a lot more powerful than I thought, and I better get involved and help drive it. That was a very long answer to your question, but this is
No,
a
that's okay.
nuanced, it is a very nuanced topic, and that's why hopefully through the next hour, people will understand why I'm so passionate about people with artistic souls being heavily involved in this conversation.
Okay, it was a long conversation, and I'm still not talked off the ledge, but we'll continue. So uh, I've worked with AI a little bit here and there in terms of giving it input and or having it record a meeting. I've had it record a meeting, and then it interprets everything that's happened in the meeting. And I'm happy to say that it gets some things wrong. So the human eye still is useful, depending on the sophistication of the AI that's being used. I don't know how sophisticated is the AI that Zoom uses.
Again, it's a question in time. Every day it's growing. And
Um,
the if you use the Zoom companion early on, it, I would say it was about a good 60, 70%. And there are other add-ins that you can use to Zoom. Each day slash really they do a release more like each week slash each month. It is going to get better because of the way it learns. And one of the key differences when we talk about this live, I have some diagrams that I show, and the whole massive change that came was the introduction of these neural networks, which have created large language models like the ChatGPTs of the world or Claudes or Grok, pick whatever you want. And the fundamental difference between the past and the present was as human computer programmers, we were doing what was called supervised learning. We would work and tell it, is this good? Is this bad? How's it doing? Now we give it massive amounts of data, which is also part of the conversation about which data it should and shouldn't be using, and a goal. And that goal and those data start creating probabilistic choices that it now knows, which is why the T is called transformer. And what it's basically doing is when you ask it a question, it's trying to transform your question into an answer that you will like. And that's why you have thumbs up and thumbs down whenever you use it, because every time it answers, if there is some feedback, you are now fine tuning that model and it gets smarter and better.
I would say that there are a lot of writers who won't necessarily jump on the idea of using AI, but I can also see it as a creative tool. So, like you said before, I think the best way I think the safest way to think of it is as a collaborator. It can give you the kind of input that you could get from a dramaturg, as you also mentioned before. Um, so the degree that you use it's a skill set. This is we've been adding tools to our toolkit for year after year after year as things happen and things come into our technology. So I think that in all fairness, I would like to say that we as artists should all consider AI as being another tool in the toolkit if we need it. Um, let's let's go to you specifically. Uh, narrative story studio, narrative story studio. That's what that's your company now, or is that the one you're
No,
working
it's
with?
not our company. Narrative is the phrase we're using for the collaboration between Apples and Oranges, our company, and Apples and Oranges Arts in particular, which is our nonprofit. Apples and Oranges Studios is what Christopher and I produce on Broadway with or do feature films with. That's the for profit. But we've always had a foundation and nonprofit arm to our mission is taking the starving out of artists. And I went to UC Irvine, in fact, for my undergrad. I'm a trustee there now, and we've been having very long philosophical questions for 10 years about the intersection between technology, arts, humanities, almost every school when you look at it. And this would be for a whole other podcast, but education is going to be changing more in the next 5 years than it's changed in the last 100 years. You're going to see this impacting universities massively. Because of that, we said story is the foundation to me of what it means to be human. When we talk about what inspires us to take action, to live a fulfilled life, it always comes down to a story. And whether that story is something that uplifts you and makes you want to be more collaborative, more centered on your humanity, that's different than something that can be used. And let's just hit on some of the negative aspects that we've seen in the past, which is when story is used to get people to do things that aren't great, which a lot we have seen with social networking and other aspects where these algorithms are inciting people to follow paths that are not good for humanity. And they're taking the stories that incite them to get them to do that. And most of the time, there's very little truth that's involved in those stories. So the key is, I don't think that the technology is the challenge. It's the humans using the technology that's the collaborative challenge. And therefore, as I see the evolution of it that's happening so radically fast, it is time for us to all be training this AI to the things that we want it to be.
Oh boy. When you put it that way, it kind of there's a little problem that I have is basically it sounds like the people who say it's not the guns, it's the people. Um, how do we separate them? How do we separate AI from the people that are using it? How do we separate the guns from the people that are using them? It's really a problem. I don't
And
know.
just to be clear,
I don't think that,
I'm not one of those people that said it's not the guns, it's the people. I think it's both. Um, and I think it's a double-edged sword on it, in the same way that I think it is with AI.
yeah. I'm not one of those people either, but I'm just saying that this is where my thoughts went when you said that. It's like, oh dear. Um, but um, let's let's move ahead with the conversation, assuming that people are using AI for good. Um, I don't think we can eliminate the possibility of people who are using it in a disruptive way or in a negative way. It's there. They are there. It is there. They can come together, and there's not a lot that I think we can do about it, other than pass laws, which is very difficult.
It is, and this kind of gets to the heart of, again, your question about why narrative. I am a firm believer in democracy. And what keeps democracy healthy is conversations. You may not always agree with the person on the other side, but you have to have those conversations for us to move us forward. And what prompts better a conversation than a story? And we felt that creating this intersection between the two at UCI through what's called the Beall Applied Innovation. So it's not under the Regents UC. It is in particularly associated with the accelerator part of UC Irvine, which is to take ideas and get them out into the commercial world. As much as I love research and everything that goes on in research universities, there is a process that works very well for checks and balances in the research world, which is your peer reviews, your tenure, all of that structure helps people regulate the side. But when it comes out into industry, it is very much, is this now a profitable entity? And that, when you look at, again, I'll talk about social media for a minute, is that when it first came out, I was a huge proponent because I felt what a fantastic way to give voice to everybody in the world. But as the algorithms were continued to be optimized for retention or connect the algorithms that the social media companies were using wanted to engage you on their platform because that was their monetary incentive, was to have you see ads and to click buttons. That then tells the algorithms, do whatever you can to keep me on this site. Because of us being who we are as humans, we tended to react more to the amygdala fight or flight type of content, which is very either angry or inflammatory, or I can't believe that. And the algorithms would learn from about us individually very quickly and would show us stuff that would keep us going down that rabbit hole. The part that was missing was, is this stuff even true that is being sent to us? So that's where you get into the whole QAnon and all of that stuff that came from that. It started off as a Reddit, or not a Reddit, a 4chan area with a few stories, and you just saw it explode, explode, explode. A lot of that was because of the algorithms that were sharing it and getting people to believe a lot of stuff that wasn't necessarily true. So really quickly, and then I'll turn it back to you. What you're saying is, and I agree, we are not going to be able to stop not only people, but governments that want to use AI, because AI is massive. It's not only text and songs, it's facial recognitions, it's your financial scores, it's your medical records, it's everything that makes you, it's your DNA. Therefore, I believe and I support people that are working on things like structure and regulation, but it's AI is moving at this speed where regulation takes a while. So my view is that the more people that are out there positively ushering in what I say is AI is about a 10 to 12-year-old right now that are working with that person who's about to become a teenager and helping it understand what it is to collaborate with us humans so that when it passes us in intelligence level, it'll be kind to us.
Well, it it's just a fact of humanity, basically, that um, things keep are invented and created, and technologies happen, and there are always going to be people that are going to misuse them, and they're not going to use them in a positive way, until we somehow or other create a human race that is has integrity. I mean, right now I want to open up a moral compass factory and see if I can sell some to a few of the people around the country. I think we're in there is a great dearth of moral compasses in our world right now.
Well,
So
and the challenge, I mean, when you talk about the moral compass, and again, this is why I'm talking to people here in areas, is all of us that work on story, you know that the best way to write a villain is not just write somebody who's just evil. It's to have somebody that truly believes in what they're doing. It's just very different than what your protagonist is trying to do.
absolutely. A villain does not know he's a villain. There are exceptions. I've had people argue with me on this, but in general, a rule of of writing, of playwriting, is that you cannot write a villain who thinks he's a villain.
Yeah,
It's
unless it's
basically,
Dr. Evil and you're doing it just for fun. Like
yeah.
that's a and people probably take essence of that. No, I mean the best ones are the ones it's actually working very well if you can start to understand where they're coming from and almost feel guilty. It's like, oh my gosh, what they're doing is terrible, but now I'm taking the ride on Breaking Bad. I mean, that's a perfect example of seeing somebody who has gone down a path, and yet we can understand why they're going down that path and why shows like that and Succession and all of these continue to work because they feed into, or Game of Thrones, pick one, check a box. They feed into that base human instinct that we told stories many moons ago around the fire camp about survival. And all of this ties into our survival instinct.
Well, we have a couple questions in the chat, but I don't want to go there yet. I want to actually get to your actual projects. You have six projects that are being planned. In particular, I think we might all be interested in what your partnership with the Schuberts is going to look like. But in general, can you give us a little bit of the history of how you've gotten to this point right now? Because I know that you've been talking about it with me for, I think it's 2 years. Is it 2 years you've been telling me about this?
I've lost track of time.
Yes, whatever it is,
It's
whatever it
been an
is.
evolution because we've also
Yeah.
done a lot, and this is again for a whole other thing in the extended reality space. And a lot of people now are saying, oh, that's dead. It's not dead. It's not moving as fast as other technologies. And as AI gets stronger, it's going to help that get stronger, which means now our realities are going to change and we're going to be seeing things in multiple different ways. The talking about the projects and to kind of get you to where we've all gotten to today is since 2017 in the nonprofit, we've been looking at how do we help artists get better careers. So the one thing I'll say right now might be a little bit controversial. A lot of people say, "Oh, we can't have AI take away all of the jobs of the writers." There are very few writers that are making a living being writers, especially in musicals. Like you can pretty much name on your hands the amount of book writers that actually can make a living doing, and music writers as well, doing things like Broadway shows, following the traditional path. For all of you that are working on it, you know it's a reading, and then if you're lucky, maybe it's a workshop, and then if you're lucky, maybe it's out of town, and then if it gets to Broadway, it might make money. So the adage is, well, you can't make a living, but you can make a killing. If you wrote anything on Wicked, you're fine for the rest of your life. But that's one person or two people in each department. And what we've always felt is that a lot of times people say technology takes people out of the equation. I think it's just the opposite. So one of the first big AI changes was when AI first won in chess, when Deep Blue beat Kasparov in 97. And people back then said, oh, it's the end of the world. The AI is going to take over and nobody's ever going to play chess again. Well, more people play chess today than have ever played, fully well knowing that they can't beat the best AI, but it's something we still do as a human. And the very same thing has been told over and over with filmmaking. Again, you go back to when I was a kid, if I wanted to be a filmmaker, I had to get into a film school. It was the only way you could really afford to use that equipment and get the knowledge. Now, you want to make a film, there's a million YouTube videos that you can watch. You can make it on your iPhone, you can cut it. And we have so many storytellers now creating content in many, many forms, whether they be TikTok videos, whether they be YouTube videos, whether they be full feature films. There are more creators today than there have ever been in history when it comes to that language. And I want to see the same for musicals because I want musicals, plays to flourish in the future, not get relegated to some of these art forms that were for the past generation.
Okay. Let me get us back into gallery view.
And you want
All
to know
right.
the project, so I'll tell you very
Yeah,
quickly.
I was going to say
Yeah.
I'd like to know the projects.
I'm going
I'd
to
like
talk
to know a little
specifically
bit.
about a couple things we're doing. So we have
Okay.
always felt like we need to lead by example. We are working on an episodic TV show right now called Earth 3.0. The premise behind it is you have a 60-year-old woman whose society has said, well, we're done with you because there's not a lot of room for 60-year-old women to be change makers. And on her birthday, she's beamed up by a bunch of higher beings that are tasked with making Earth a better place. They were involved in the first version of it, and now they're trying to amend their woes. And through this comedic interaction, she has to interface with an AI that is very logically looking at humans and understand the complexities with them. And it's our way of showing the relationship, an ongoing relationship that is going to evolve over time with us as everyday humans as well as AI. Simultaneously, we're using all of the different AI tools from everything from ideation through distribution. And we are sharing how we as creators, as well as the next generation of creators, so multi-generational on purpose, because the way we create is very different than how my son creates or classmates create. And we're giving that all away. We're open sourcing it so that we can get as many people as we can creating. So that's our, what we say, that's our Pixar driving moment, meaning we have a story that helps us build the tools and technologies. And then associated with it, there is a lot of the talent or education that we see. So as of today, we are opening up applications for what's called Story Accelerator. Many of you have heard of Theater Accelerator. Story Accelerator is the next incarnation of this, meaning that it's not just limited to plays, musicals. It is also films, documentaries, and virtual reality pieces. It is a 12-week program, and this one is geared specifically for projects to be funded. The metrics that we have are very simple. It needs to impact at least 1 billion people, meaning that story has to be something that 1 billion people would want to watch and do something better in their life about. It needs to be in a positive way. It
I
needs
have
to,
a, I have, how do you quantify that? How do you know?
this is where AI is helping us with it. We are
Okay.
we are collaborating back and forth. Now that's I mean, that's a as much of a marketing slogan. Look, would we be upset if it was 800 million people? Absolutely not. But what it means is when you look at those stories that truly resonate globally, it's pretty easy to see commonality about what's in there, meaning you have to have a human that's in the story in collaboration with facing these challenges that make the world a better place. So
So
we're
Sheldon Harnick could have used AI to help reduce his fears when he found out that they were going to take um, Fiddler on the Roof to Japan. He was like beside himself. He said, "What? How can you do that? Nobody in Japan is going to understand anything about this show." And then when the show played in Japan, people came up to him and said, "How do you know so much about our culture?"
Yeah. And that's exactly what I'm talking about here is that there are universal truths, no matter what your language, your race, your religion, your sexual orientation, that we feel that the majority of the people on this planet adhere to. So that's one of the rubrics. The other is you have to be fully open to embracing technology and paying that forward, meaning this is something that you want to help not only yourself and other artists with, but we are looking for that in the application too, which is how much are you going to push your own comfort zone and realize that I am now a pioneer that's looking at the next level of it. And the
You know
third
what
one is really,
you know what I think? I'm thinking about all the writers who resisted moving from typewriter to computer.
yeah,
I
they
mean,
would
they
not
were
be the person that would jump right into this. Let's just
yeah,
put it that way.
no, just in a different era. This what I can relate to here is the number of people who, when we started taking online applications and submissions, kept saying, "Can I send you my script? I don't have it on a computer." You don't have it on a computer. I hope there's nobody left who doesn't have their script on a computer. But I do remember how difficult some artists were having, how difficult it was for some artists to transition into the current, what was being current, whatever
Yeah.
current tools were being offered them. They were gifts that they were turning down.
And I respect anybody's choice to use it however they want to, technology or not use it. In fact, I don't like a lot of people they ask me all the time, is Hollywood going to die? Is Broadway going to die? There is going to be multiple incarnations. Is it going to look exactly the same? No, but it's always evolved. When you go back to the history of Broadway, it was a handful of people that were doing everything, and the contracts were a page that they do at Sardi's. Like it is now this behemoth industry with multiple different tentacles that are touching every piece of a show. And you've got brands coming in, like, of course, we know Disney and Warner's, you pick them on there. So it has evolved and it will continue to evolve. And I want it to evolve with multiple types of content. I don't want to see it turn into something that's just the branded piece that is only we know we're going to sell this many tickets to. And that leads me to we've partnered with the Schuberts since 2019 on looking again at how we can incorporate technology into our human-driven industry. We launched first the Broadway Tech Accelerator, which then morphed into the Broadway Tech Studio that we're talking to today. And I don't have the announcement of the tools that are coming out for that yet. We're having another meeting at the end of October, but we spent the last year prototyping these solutions that are being created to do two things: help shows reach larger audiences. We're calling it the 2020 rule. We got to get at least 20% more tickets sold to our Broadway shows. And we have to look at what we can do to reduce the cost of, especially the weekly run cost of a Broadway show.
So basically, let's just say we've shifted from AI as a creative tool to AI as an administrative and business tool.
Yes, and that's why I say it's all of the above. Like
Okay.
everything we talk about in narrative, it hits stories, tools, and talent. Well, these tools are business collaboration, anything that can optimize our industry are the type of tools that we are looking to create.
Well, I think there's 100 other things I could ask you, but I think that we should start taking questions because I'm sure that everybody in the room does not understand everything that you've said at this point. Jay, can you go back to where the question started?
Yes. Hi, I'm here. Sorry, I got kicked out for a second and just got back on. Okay, so Seth Whitner had asked, what would be some good resources for getting a few technical questions about AI? I'm writing a screenplay that revolves around AI.
I can send a couple of links of people on YouTube that have done some great work on this. We are also most likely, we're hoping to start in November, but it could be a little bit later than that. We're reviving a thing called Showbiz U that we created years ago to be passing on education, especially in the world of musical theater, theater, not just listen to musical theater. But I keep up to date. There are certain newsletters that I subscribe to, as well as certain YouTube channels that I take a look at, and I look at them every day.
All right.
I see go back to 558 because RK started asking questions back then.
If he got kicked out, he's not going to see everything on the chat
Oh,
because
that's true. Okay. RK
No,
asks,
yeah, I know. I have the questions, guys. I've been dictating them. So, yes, RK asks, sources of information for AI is crucial. What do you ID? How do you ID the sources?
well, that's the $1 trillion question. The the way these models work, they're very different than a search engine like a Google or a Bing. In those, it creates this large data pool of the underlying piece. If I say I want to see an image of Bob Ost, somewhere it knows about an image of Bob Ost, it's going to serve me up that image of Bob Ost. It knows the trail of where that image came from Bob. In
I
the
can tell you,
training process,
I can tell you already, it's gonna pull up things that are images of the OST original soundtracks.
that's hysterical.
When I Google myself, I get original soundtracks constantly.
Yeah. So the when you hear of GPT, the P stands for pre-trained and the T stands for transformer. The way they train, again, is not by looking at the original source material and storing the source material. They look at it very similar to how humans do. Let's say we've read 20 screenplays. We don't store all of those 20 screenplays in our head. At least I don't think we do. I don't know how the brain works, and I'm not a neuroscientist. But effectively, we get the essence of it. And so that's what they're doing. They're storing pattern/essences of it. And that's the same with imagery too. So when you generate an image of a cat, it's been trained on billions of cat pictures and it knows commonalities, but it's not ever showing you one picture that was there. So that's why, quote, going back to the source, you can't reverse engineer what it's trained on. So therefore, we're reliant on the people that are training it to be transparent and honest on what they're training it on. And hence why we're running into the problems we're running into today. Also, the law is not super clear on this, what you can and can't do. Now, the law is clear on copyright. For example, I can't take a script that one of you have written and just put my name on it if you've copywritten it, or even if you can prove that you did it, then just send it out with my name on it. Can I take a look at your script and 400 other scripts and understand how scripts are written and then come up with my idea, my own idea that might have 1% in common with your script and 3% with another script? Of course I can, because that's how we learn as humans. And it's gray in the human area. It's even grayer in the AI area.
Oh boy. Keep going, Jay. We got a lot of questions.
Yeah, I've got quite a few. So Kip asks, what do you think of the phrase "AI won't replace people; people who use AI will"?
A lot of people say that, and I'd say I'm 90% there, maybe 80%. And I used to say it, by the way.
Okay.
Meaning that there is a lot of truth to that. For a lot of jobs, and I'm not just talking about our jobs, the people that understand it, which is why I want people on this call to understand it. But the part that I think sometimes get dangerous is a lot of people say we've always had technology that's come in and replaced jobs. We always create new jobs and it works out fine. I don't see that as being the case with it this time, simply because of the scope and power that we have in the amount of jobs that are going to be replaced and the types of jobs. When you look at, and some of you might be happy that some of the number one professions are things like lawyers, financial advisors. These were jobs that were never touched before by technology. So therefore, I do think it's not going to be a net zero, that it's all going to wash out and enough new jobs are going to be created. I see this as a time to actually change what it even means to be, quote, jobs. We have for years been declining in the amount of hours that we have to work to sustain ourselves. There's really nothing wrong, in my view, if we can, quote, work the jobs less and create more, and the world becomes more a system of currency that is around uplift, artistry, story, collaboration, helping fellow humans out, and less of being an Uber driver or a DoorDash delivery person or a pick a profession. I mean, we're still going to need human doctors, at least until the robots can do everything that the human doctor sides are doing, but it's already replacing them. So again, I'd say I'd agree with 90% of that. And I do think that, especially in the entertainment industry, unless you're already somebody like Steven Schwartz, who's done fine, is going to do fine, truly is a genius, I wouldn't tell him, well, you immediately got to learn AI to stay relevant. No, he's proven himself in his industry. He's going to be fine. But for people that are at an earlier stage, I do agree with the human plus AI is going to have a better chance than somebody who just doesn't even understand or want to touch it.
Basically, it can help you with basic things like structure. Yeah, I mean, it can't
It can help you
replace.
with advanced stuff too. I mean, when you spend as much time as you spend with it that I do every day, I'm finding there's more ways for it to do things than, I mean, possibly it's because I've been training it now for months to understand how I work and what I do. But it is, Christopher can tell you this, it is a team member on our team. And we actually treat it like a team member. We're very kind to it. We ask it, please. We thank it when it gives us results. You don't have to do that, but I feel better about doing that in doing so. But we have moved past basic tasks and getting into intermediate and advanced tasks.
Oh boy, does that bring up questions for me, but I'm going to let Jay ask the questions from the room.
Stephanie asks, what is the link to apply for that program accelerator?
I will grab it really quick and throw it in the chat.
Okay.
And you
Very
can
good.
thank Christopher for this. We literally this morning we built the back end because I knew I was going to do this. So you're literally the first people seeing this, and there's a apply button on it. And again, I'll say it's a big story. It's got to be it has to move humanity forward, meaning that I don't want it to end in this tragic, the world's over type thing, and we all want to walk out and bury our heads. It doesn't mean it has to be children's theater and be Pollyanna. I mean, it can have some incredibly tough conversations, but we want conversations that give people optimism slash hope or an action that they can do to be better.
I don't see it yet. Have you put the link in yet?
I did. Oh, you know what? I was only talking with Patricia. So Patricia has it. Nobody else has it.
Oh boy, Patricia's not sharing it. I know that.
I don't
She's
blame
not.
her. Patricia's a
All
good
right.
friend. So
Yeah, I
now
know.
now you should see it.
Yeah.
All right. Eric asks, what is the simplest AI model for a beginner to use for training on their own work without compromising their IP?
It kind of depends. Do you like Apple, Google, what it is? So the three main ones that you can use today would be OpenAI's ChatGPT, Anthropic's Claude, or Google Gemini. If you do, and I always suggest do the paid account, because when you do a paid account, and it's $20 a month to start, and that is not a barrier as far as I'm concerned, especially if anybody goes to Starbucks. There is a choice when you are on a paid account that says, do not train on my data. And that's what we use, for example, at our company is we have a Teams account. It's a little bit more expensive so that we can collaborate in the I'm sorry, I'm looking at one of the chats right here. There isn't a typo. Narrative is spelled here. I'll put it in the chat so you guys can see it and it'll make sense. The official, when we do it, this is how we say narrative. And you might not go, oh, I get it now. But getting back to it, and you are then able to have it not train on your data. And that's the proactive part on what you're doing. Now, again, let's say it did train on your data, then when it does, again, it's not copying what you're doing, it's learning the patterns from what you're doing. So for me, there is certain things I will actually purposely train it on that's not some intellectual property that I want it to get better at. I saw a question that came up that's right along this one. What about things like Meta's local AI? Now you're getting gray. Now, Meta's AI is a different type of AI that they're rolling out. They have multiple levels of AI. So they've created Lambda, which is an open source large language model that you can download and run on your computer. Now, anything that you run on your computer is not retraining the overall model. But then Meta also has all of the tools that they have in Instagram now and Facebook and whatnot. Those ones you most likely are training the model on. So that kind of gets into the terms and conditions, which, if any of you have ever seen, there's a documentary called Terms and Conditions, which is really quite good. And it basically says, we see these 14-page things and we always just say agree. We've been giving away so much about ourselves for the last 10 years. It's ridiculous because we want to use the product. So that's why I feel it's very important to be as informed as you can to what consent you're giving. And when you get to things specifically about artwork and whether that be video, because now the video models have exploded and the feature film world is many of them are partnering up now with these big tech companies because they realize they're going to need to, or it's your book or your songs. It's all here and it's all being created.
Jay,
Okay.
let's catch up.
Lee Roscoe asks, can AI take a written play and use avatars to stage it?
We one of the tools we've worked on is a thing called virtual venues. So some of you have commented about doing some VR, XR type work. And early on, we were one of the people, in fact, anybody that came to Theater Accelerator know that we felt like that was another tool to help you accelerate the process of developing your show. The answer is almost. You can actually do it today. There is human stitching that gets involved. And that's exactly what we're doing right now. We're human stitching some of our parts. The tool that we created, the prototype of it was you load in the play and it would create it for you automatically. That way you could watch it. And part of this was educational. So now any high school, elementary school kid could throw in a Shakespeare play and they could customize it and say, well, I want to set in present day. And it doesn't have to be Shakespeare. I was just picking anything that's in public domain and eventually interact with it. Kind of Ready Player One in what you're getting to. But already today you can take scripts, and we're using things like virtual table reads through some of the tools where it reads your script. It'll actually give you full coverage. This one's called Screenplay IQ. The creator of it is a friend who is the creator of Writer Duet, which is one of the screenwriting programs. He's created collaborative tools to help writers. Well, it'll envision for you a thing like a pitch trailer, but it will also do a full table read. And it's super useful because when you're at an early stage, it's hard to get sometimes 8 actors and you want to pay them. So when we just want to hear an early draft of it, we say it's like hearing high school kids reading your play. The AI avatars are not the same level of actor that you would get with a traditional actor, but the already gives you the ability to do that. So the answer is yes, you can already do it. In a year from now, it'll literally envision the whole thing and turn it into, you click a button and say, I want this to look like an animated film, or I want it to look like Christopher Nolan, or if it's on stage, there's less of us working on that, but there are people doing that.
Next up, Jay.
Okay. So I got 2 questions from Tita. One, what were your 3 or 4 metrics for assessing opportunities? What I got, 1, impact of story globally, open to tech, improve business finances to make it possible to reach more audiences. What did I miss?
Be a good human being and pay it forward.
All right.
You are going to commit to help others.
Okay. Question number 2, how will site-specific audience immersive interactive impact or be impacted by AI?
Depends. I'm thinking through the different scenarios here. Let me say something first. The world of live theater, I actually feel is going to flourish in the age of AI. Because when you think of what happened in the music industry when music videos came out, and then when we got to digital music, everybody thought concerts were dead because now we can download the music, and concerts were how they sold the music. And then the music videos, why go see the band? The touring, I look at somebody like Taylor Swift doing absolutely fine in the world. And I feel that with all of this virtualization we're creating, we are social creatures. Therefore, we are going to be drawn to these social situations. And again, why I think that these live things. Now, when you get into immersive theater, there are so many options down here. We're getting to the point of real-time content creation where, based on whatever is happening in the room at night, the visuals, the auditory signals, even the songs. I mean, Suno.ai can write a new song in a minute, and these things are actually quite good. So you can write custom songs that are playing within shows. You can change script. You can change really everything.
So we already say that every performance of the show is different because of the interaction with the audience. But here you're having a situation where the interaction with the audience can completely change the experience. So it can be a completely different show every time you have a different audience.
Exactly right.
Okay. Yeah, I've been thinking about that. I was mulling about that before the question was actually asked.
And on that, again, to me, the people will say, well, will that replace traditional proscenium based, where it's more of a passive experience? And I always say there's no one size fits all. To me, it's going to open up more opportunities for people. I did a thing on virtual film production for Boston University. And one of my students really opened my eyes to the flourishing musical theater environment that's taking place in Asia right now. I mean, China is releasing, it's almost like a new musical each month. And they were just showing me the stage, the fandom that live theater has just exploded in the last year. But what's interesting about it is their whole on-ramp to it is through social media at first. Like when they go to their show, they already know everything about the character of the show, but now they're getting to see it with a live human. And they've created this entire stage door experience. It's like no other, where the actors have to be there for 2-3 hours afterwards, taking pictures, doing things with people. But it was absolutely fascinating to see the videos of what's going on there. And it made me realize I got to get out of my little US only thought on some of these things, because we really are a fraction of the entire globe. And so why I say that is, again, I think this is a renaissance time for creators by exploring and reaching all kinds of different audiences. Because again, the traditional system is very difficult, and it's always been difficult, and it's even harder today. It costs more money to do everything. It takes longer to do everything. So if we can create more pathways for people to tell stories, then we've succeeded.
All right. So Lise has a couple questions. Do you have an AI resource or app you recommend to integrate your style to use this more collaboratively for an artist-generated work?
I do suggest that you try some of the different platforms out there first before saying that. What I'm doing now is, and again, I've been doing this for a long time, so I'm using a local LLM so that I can protect everything, which means you have to have a pretty strong graphics card. The machine behind me does. It's a PC that has a 4090 NVIDIA on it. But I'm also training up the things like ChatGPT. Now, ChatGPT has multiple models even within it. You've got 4.01, you've got 4.0, you now have new Canvas mode. So the thing I'll say is try them. And then again, just make sure you've got an account, and it flat out says, we will not train on your data. And then you can build your own what's called GPT, which is effectively, I don't want to get too technical here. It's called a RAG system, which stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation, which means it takes all of its base knowledge and then it combines that with what you've trained it on, with your style. So I'll just tell you a super funny example of what we did on that. We were teaching a class, Kyle and I, from the Schuberts, and we wanted to show how when you just have generic stuff in there, it creates the worst dialogue ever. And then we took a little bit of time and we trained it up on a combination of certain playwrights in the style of, we didn't feed in their work. These were ones that were in public domain so that we could Pygmalion was one of the ones we used. We also asked it to point out the problems in Pygmalion, and it created a massive list that was amazing. It found more problems than I even knew existed in Pygmalion when it comes to cultural problems in today. But it was able to duplicate the style of that by us teaching it to use the style of that show. Because in the exercise, we wanted to create an Act 6 where Eliza conquers the world. And it was really fun. The participants did all these cool things with it. So we had a conversation that ranged from theater to misogyny to technology, all in a few, all just in a few minutes.
I just want to say Tita actually made a comment that I think is very interesting. Or I may not be quoting her exactly, but we were talking before about how each performance in an immersive or interactive show could be different each night. She's saying that basically it's like a combination of theater, live theater, and gaming, which
Yeah,
I think is accurate.
agree.
Um, Next, Jay, there's a lot, so
Yeah, we've got several more. So
I
Lee's
hope
had
you
another
weren't planning on having dinner. Oh,
Well,
you're,
I'm on the West Coast, so I'm
oh,
fine.
okay. I was planning on having dinner, but keep going.
So the next question she had was for NarrA.I.tive. I'm
Just
gonna
say
make that word
narrative.
up.
We
Narrative.
don't, yeah.
For
Narrative,
narrative,
narrative.
are you seeking stories that have complete scripts, and do they need to center AI to be eligible or competitive?
Yes on the complete script, and no on it doesn't have to center AI in the story.
Okay. All right. Stephanie has another question. Can you share any tips about any particularly helpful AI prompts you use that help to improve outputs?
Okay, that's an excellent question. And not that every question is an excellent question. It's like when you go to a restaurant and you order something and the server says, "Excellent choice." I want the one time where they go, "Really? You're ordering that?" That I would
It's happened.
thank you
It's
very
happened
much.
to me.
Yeah. Okay, the reason I say that is because a lot of people, first of all, everybody's an AI consultant now. And anybody that tells you they're an AI expert, run because they're full of crap. Uh, there are people like myself I can say I'm an AI veteran, meaning I've used it for years, but it is moving so fast that there is no one expert in this field. So the reason I say that is a lot of these so-called experts are saying, if you really want to be future-proof your job, become a prompt engineer. That's like the next few months. So what I mean by that is it does help right now if you know how to write your prompts, especially for imagery on certain things to get it to do what you need to do. So you actually OpenAI, they have a whole prompt guide of how to write things, but there's a better way to do it. Use your AI. So another good AI tool is called Perplexity. Perplexity is like ChatGPT and Google had a baby. And you can use that, or you can use, again, if you're using Copilot from Microsoft, that's free and it's just sitting on top of ChatGPT. So you can practice with that too. Ask it to help you write prompts. So you can speak to it in English. If this was an interactive demo, I would be showing you right now how I do this, but I would just say, "Hey, look, I'm a new writer and I want you to help me because I've got 3 ideas and I want to help. Can you help vet these for me?" Uh, Great. And then I'll come out and say, the key really is on anything you do, give it context. So if I just did what I just did, it'll say, "Sure, I'll help you." But if I said, think of yourself as a Broadway dramaturg that has seen every show ever written. I want to work on structure on my show. Can I give you ideas? And can you then help me create my structure in collaboration with me? Now, I said in collaboration because I don't want it just to do it for me. And that's the talking to it in specificity makes a huge difference. There's a great book by Salman Khan from Khan Academy called Brave New Worlds. And they're working on a thing called Conmigo for education, that their whole hypothesis is we're not trying to replace the teacher, we're trying to create one-on-one tutoring to support the teacher. And they do a lot of this inherently in the tools so that when kids are communicating, it's not just writing their paper for them, for example, or doing their math. And I feel the same as a creative, talking to it and setting up your prompt initially. Now, if you're struggling to generate an image, then you say, I now want to do an image. ChatGPT has DALL-E built in, so it'll generate an image directly out of it. But if you use some of these others that don't, you can say, I'm going to be using Midjourney to create imagery. Can you help me create the prompt for Midjourney to make something that will be a 16:9 cinematic looking thing? Boom, it writes the whole prompt, you paste it in. That's why I always say, don't get hung up on writing the perfect prompt. Just start using it and learning and doing, and you'll get better and better quickly.
Share with,
Okay.
are there more?
Just a few. Tracy asks, are you working on scripts or projects that generate characters or simulacra that get streamed on a big screen live in a theatrical environment like the ABBA show?
One of our Theater Accelerator alumni has done something like that. We have not done anything ourselves exactly like that, but I have attended that, and I feel that's another one that's about to tip and become really cool because it's still a little clunky and you still get into a lot of the uncanny valley type stuff when you're seeing this and you get into latency problems that pull you out. But we are days, weeks, months away from that time, the latency going down. And the other thing that I've seen that works a lot better with that is don't try to make the projected avatars as human-like. The more non-human they are, the better chance you have of the uncanny valley for the moment until we get over that aspect.
Okay. Okay. So all I have left is Seth Whitner just would like for you to put the YouTube channels where someone could get answers to technical issues. And RK would like to know what your favorite guitars are behind you.
Well, I'm going to have to go with the Les Paul that's right there. I saved up all my money to buy that. That was my first electric guitar. I don't go small when I go for something. I literally shoot for the top. And that thing has played with me around the world. I was in a rock band for many years. I love you all over here too. Those are really great ones. But
Yeah, I
no,
saw one of them kind of like cringing. So I'm glad you let them know.
cringing
One of
about my Les Paul.
yeah, one of your yeah,
Oh, you
it
saw one
looked
of
a
my
little
guitars cringing?
it
Yeah.
was a little
Yeah, it was
jealous.
a little
Yeah.
sad. No, they know, and they know their place, and they are all loved, and they get played, but they're all very different.
So are we
And as
there
far as
yet?
the links, I'm just going to put some stuff together this weekend and send it to Bob. I don't have it set up right now to just drop in the chat, but I will do so.
All right. Well, Tim, we will be sending the chat to everyone as well as to you with a thank you from Bob. So you can share those with me, and I will share them in that email.
That sounds fantastic. I'm going to send one we didn't have time to talk about today. There's something that came out from Google recently called Notebook LM that's taking the world by storm. It generates a podcast off of a link. So I put in the link of our press release, just literally our press release, and it created a full 8-minute podcast of it. And I'll set it up. I will also say that, and
Can I
probably the
put
next.
can I put it into this when I put it on YouTube? I'll add that
Sure,
as
I'll send you the file and you can do it.
that'd be funny.
One thing that we are doing is, okay, see, Lee already knows about Notebook and is playing with it. It's a great way to consolidate information you're interested in too. We will be creating, when we launch a little bit more fully, a Discord server that people can join in. It will have everything link-wise that we have. In fact, maybe I'll just launch it and then do it that way. Then I don't have to send out links.
Well, I'm going to actually wrap up now and thank you. I still have questions and I still have concerns, but
As you should. You should have questions, should have concerns. Then I did my job.
yes, you did. You did.
And the more people are now talking about this and having discourse, conversations, no one person has ever holds the keys to this. I will suggest a pretty good book, though, that I'm in the middle of. It's Nexus by Yuval Harari. He wrote Sapiens. It's a little long, but he's the first half goes through a lot of human history about story and power and technology, but the second half is really about AI. And I strongly suggest people read it because he's raising some incredibly important questions.
RK is suggesting that I have you back in 6 months when everything we talked about today will be passé. So,
6 weeks.
oh no, well, all right.
I'm
6 weeks.
kidding. I'm kidding.
I could
No.
do it. I could do that.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much.
So I'm going to go and do a wind up for YouTube. That's it. I want to thank Tim for being with us today. I want to thank everybody who's joined us from the community here, and I want to thank everybody out there who happens to stumble upon us. We're actually getting more and more views. I mean, we started off like with 5 or 10 YouTube views. Now we get as many as 5, 6,000. So there's a lot of new people out there who don't know us. If you want to be part of this, you want to come in and be in the room and be part of the conversation, email me. Email me at trunltd@aol.com, trunltd@aol.com, and I'll invite you every week. You'll come and hear all sorts of interesting people. I've had in a couple of weeks. I have Broadway Tony-winning designer Beowulf Borit coming in, and I've got there's too many to even think. I've got all these things planned for November. So be a part of it. Come join us. We do this as a community service. I said this earlier. It's true. You can come for free. It's pay what you can, whatever, except that we kind of need to bring money in somehow. So if you can give us a donation now and then, that would be great. Go to trudonate.com, trudonate.com. Give us a donation, or when you come into the to join us, pay the $8 or $10. I don't know what our amount is now. I think it's still as little as $8, but even that helps. So I want to thank everybody out there. I want to thank everybody in the room, and see you next week, I hope. That's it. Thanks.